So.
No, the
raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens.
More about gel coat.
Brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things.
When the fourth round
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the My Favorite Things podcast, and here's your host, Jamie! Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to the My Favorite Things podcast. Episode 6, here we go. I'm glad you could all make it. Thanks for being here. I'm going to apologise in advance now for my very hoarse, sexy-sounding voice. I am a bit of a sore throat from generally feeling a bit ill and singing S Club 7 at the top of my lungs over the weekend. Not professionally, I was at a staff party, had a bit too much to drink, and you know how it goes. Yeah. So, episode 6 with Scott Holden, that man on ThatMan himself. Scott is an awesome guy. I'm recording this before I've even done the interview, and I can already tell you he's an awesome guy. I discovered Scott through my Facebook page. Well, not my Facebook page, I'm an admin of a Facebook group called The World of Kevin Smith. So, as you can guess from that title alone where this conversation is going to go today. And Scott obviously posted on there because he has his own podcast called That Man on ThatMan, which we will discuss. And it's the first ever Smodco fanzine podcast, and it is absolutely incredible. So I really wanted to get Scott on the show to have a conversation with him. We've tried to do this quite a few times now, to be fair. Well, this is the second attempt. Hopefully it works out this time. Before we arranged it all and I was having technical problems, I almost threw my laptop out of a window because I got so angry with it and we missed the appointment. But we're good to go. We're going to go today. And like I said, I'm really grateful for Scott for coming on the show. Before we get into the show, I just wanted to say thank you to all the new followers and whatnot I have on the Facebook page. People who are out there, please show some love, show some support. I'm just a lonely fat man with a beard in Birmingham. I don't have advertising budgets. I don't have sponsors and all this sort of stuff. But I really appreciate the support. This is something I absolutely love doing. I am sad. I absolutely love sitting in my garage. Although today I'm going to stay in the house because it's cold. And talking into my computer, talking to people I've never even met face to face, and having an amazing conversation. And it's such an amazing medium. Me and Scott are no doubt going to get into amazing conversation about podcasting because we both have a massive passion for it. But yeah, I won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on board. Thank you for listening again. I hope you really enjoy the new things I put up on Facebook, my little episode description pictures. Sorry, the badly photoshopped episode description pictures, as I like to call them. I'm now a part of Clerks from my episode of Scott Shaffo. Granted, Dante didn't have my head was in bright colour, but it's there. Personal favourite has got to be the Howard the Duck bonus episode with my head on top of the lady whose name has completely escaped me at this moment. But yeah, I have boobs and I look good in lingerie, especially sat next to a duck. Worryingly, the boobs bit is true. Oh well, but they're not good. Anyway, I digress yet again. So sit back, buckle up. You're in for a ride. We're going to have a great conversation with that man on ThatMan himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scott Holden. Paul, take us in.
Welcome to the show!
Mr. Scott Holden, welcome to the My Favorite Things podcast, sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
No problem. How are you doing?
I am doing splendiferously wonderful.
Amazing. I love that saying. Just wanted to hear it again.
I'm in a really good, I'm really in a good mood because I lost, I just realized or just found out I lost 20 pounds since November 1st.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I was actually going to bring this up in a bit. I noticed that you've taken up the Kevin Smith thing of cutting all the sugar out from his diet. So I was going to get you in a good mood from or a bad mood from sugar withdrawals.
I'm glad you're catching me after, post withdrawal. It's been 17 days, so or 8. How many? What are we at? What's today? The 18th or 19th?
Today's the 19th.
Yeah, so 19th. I quit on the 1st, so 19 days.
Wow, I'm impressed. I've been really tempted to try it myself.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'll make it real easy. because you can see the movie and it explains all the stuff. But again, I am a diabetic type 2, have been since I was like 32. And I'm sorry if I'm coming off like I found religion too for anyone listening, but like, I am amazed because all my life I've struggled. I'm, like I said, diabetic since about 32. I was diagnosed, struggled my whole life with diabetes, struggled my whole life with my weight. In the last few years, I like really said, oh, I'm going to get my shit under control. And I started walking. I started doing all this stuff. My best game, walking and what I thought was eating right, I kept it about 190, 195. And recently, on November 1st, yes, listening to Kevin Smith, anyone who knows out there, I'm a big fan. He's sort of a hero. And, like I said, I'm a diabetic. And, as he went through it, I said, if that fucking guy can do it, so can I. And lo and behold, I did. And I'm not going to kid you. It was difficult because sugar and processed sweeteners are in everything. So maybe it's different in Europe. I don't know. Maybe the UK is different. But here, our food industry is shit. And
this is what I wanted to look into. Is ours as bad as yours? From what I've been told, no.
Yeah, I would imagine it's not because you guys... I mean, just from what I know of, the UK, you guys have a much more socially democratic system than we... Like, corporations have way too much say in our government here. And that's really who's driving the food biz. And so they put sugar in everything, a highly addictive drug. Sorry. So since November 1st, 20 pounds came off. Once I, eliminated sugar, it wasn't easy. And I stumbled at first. I'd be eating food that I didn't realize had some sort of sweetener in it, But gradually, within the first week or two, I was able to accomplish it and get the shit out of my system. And then all the moodiness and weirdness and definite withdrawal symptoms abated. And now, I mean, again, I stepped on the scale yesterday and 20 pounds gone. I haven't been. Last time I was the lowest in my adult life that I can recall was 185, and I was busting my ass with Weight Watchers, and it was like I had only just made 185 as best as I could do, and then as soon as I got there, I gained back. So, I haven't weighed this little since I was 19 years old. So I'm a happy fucking camper over here.
Yeah, no, I've been really tempted to try it because my partner does a Slimming World, which is kind of like Weight Watchers. And she's been losing loads of weight. I've been eating the same meals, and I seem to be gaining weight. I don't get it.
And the other irony is I did it without any increase in exercise. And all I ever really do is walk. So, and honestly, I wasn't even walking, just because it got cold here and I got lazy. So I did all this essentially with no exercise. I'm not bragging that I did it without exercise. I'm just saying, if you're lazy like me, cut out sugar and the weight, and it fell off right in my gut.
Oh, that's where mine sits.
Yeah, exactly. And it melted away. It's amazing. My pants are falling off.
It's amazing.
All right, I'm bragging here. All right, now I'll shut up. Enough about that. But here's what I'm saying. Kevin was right. Sugar is a drug. It is fucking evil. Avoid processed sugars, and you can lose weight. That's all I know.
Now, jog my memory, because obviously someone might be listening to this not have a clue what we're talking about right now. So obviously Kevin Smith watched a documentary. What was the name of it? The name is not coming to me right now.
It's called Fed Up, F-E-D space U-P. And it's like Katie Couric is involved, and a lot. I know Bill Clinton was in it, and the documentary is good because it shows you the science, so that you can understand it. I wish personally I would just take out a lot of the personal, because there's a lot of it sucks. You got to watch these poor obese kids, and you really feel bad for them. It really stinks. So that's a bummer.
So I've not watched it myself, but I do want to at some point, because hopefully it will drive me to do what you and Kevin have done, because it will be very helpful for me.
Yeah, it's very. One very ironic thing was I think Gene and I met Kevin when he was in I think the peak of his sugar withdrawal. There was a show here in October. It was called ThatMan Over Manhattan. And this will give you an idea of how he feels about himself that night. It still has not come out on any of the Smodcasts. It's been about a month. So he was just
actually. I was looking forward to that show. It hasn't come out yet.
Me too. Yes, me too. I get to ask a question on it if they don't cut me. But yeah, when we met him, like, first of all, he comes out and talks about, he right now. What did he say? If he would suck your dick for Lucky Charms, and then he said, actually, I would suck your dick until Lucky Charms came out of them. Something like that. Because he was just and he was like, I used to think weed used to make my happy. He's like, sugar has been making my happy. And then, like, there was, if you can, somewhere on the last few podcasts, we talk about a lot about this, but, we met him at, backstage. We had a lot of help and a lot of friends help coordinate, but we met him after the show. And if you knew the venue, it's sort of like a doorway, a side door. It's a stage door. Sorry. There. Let's make it a lot less complicated. And it was weird because I walked in the stage door, and to my left, like in the corner, was Kevin, and he just seemed like a man whose dog died, I think would be the best way to kind of, he put his arms up and he gave me a big hug and it was really cool. But like, he was not the same guy that I had met at Montclair Film Festival, a couple months prior, because then he was happy and like, yeah, it's so nice to meet you and all that kind of, and this way he was like, all right, let's set up a show. He was just very subdued.
He seems to be coming out of it now from the last few podcasts I've listened to.
Yeah.
To his normal self.
Thank God. But yeah, I get
he's juicing now as well. You were surprised.
He's juicing?
Yeah, I swear I saw a picture of him and Harley juicing.
Really?
I swear I saw it.
Because the funny thing about that is they caution you against juicing. The sugar thing. I guess it depends on the juice too.
Sugar, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's natural sugar, but the problem is when you're juicing it, you're sort of like taking out all its fiber. You're still giving your liver that jolt. That massive jolt of sugar. Now, I agree. I remember in my 20s, I was on a big carrot juice kick. It was very good for me.
Not a fan of juicing smoothies, that sort of stuff. It's just not right.
Again, I default to the fact that I'm a diabetic, so juice is not necessarily a good thing for me.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, we digressed there onto a conversation about sugar.
Yeah. We can now drop that. I don't want to be, hey, this guy preaching about anti-sugar.
No, it's good. We're educational on the My Favorite Things podcast.
Dude, again, it all comes back to this. I'm fucking 175 pounds. I'm 6'2", and I'm 175 pounds, and I haven't weighed this little since I was 19 years old. That's why I'm, they say there's winning $1 million and massive weight loss, sort of like stimulate the same pleasure centers in the brain.
So you're from New Jersey?
I am from Jersey.
Born and bred or moved there?
I have a very checkered past, but I would say the majority of my upbringing was spent in New Jersey. I spent a little time in Queens, New York City, Middle Village, probably up until the time I was about 8. Then my father was transferred, and I ended up living in Orlando, Florida for like 2 or 3 years as a child, which was amazing because Disney's in Orlando, Florida. This was all during a time here in the U.S., they were breaking up our telephone companies. They decided that our telephone companies were a union. We're not a union. We're a fucking monopoly. And they broke up the AT&T system, and it was called the divestiture. And we were supposed to, I guess, move down there for a really long time, but the divestiture was settled so quickly. We were down there and then back. And then we settled in New Jersey, which is where I lived most of my life until 2001, when I was transferred to Virginia through a job where I lived for about 10 years. And then came back.
What brought you back?
The fact that I was unemployed and couldn't get hired in Virginia, couldn't get arrested, and I was on the balls of my ass and broke and bankrupt and everything else.
We'll go into that. I'm intrigued on this one.
Sure.
So what part of New Jersey is it you're from or living in?
I am in Morris County, it's called. Little town somewhere in the middle. I've mentioned it's called Randolph. No one knows the town, but that's fine. We usually cite Morristown or Parsippany because people seem to know those towns more.
So how close is that from Highlands?
From Highland, it's about an hour. I mean, depending on traffic. If there's no traffic, you can get there in 45 minutes easy.
I can only assume that you've been there to the quick stop and whatnot.
Oh yeah. We did the tour. Actually, the funny thing was,
I need to do.
We did not do that until this year. I mean, I think I went there once in my 20s, the quick stop, but in my 20s are a bit of a blur. So this is the first time we actually officially did it. And when we did it, we also went to Kev's house, which was cool. And it was right before they raised it up on pylons.
How far away from you from the secret stash?
That was what I said, 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's to Red Bank. Highlands might be a little closer. I mean, but it's in and around the same area.
So you were saying you had a bit of a checkered past before, how tough shit helped you through it. You've had like problems with depression and whatnot. So obviously I'm not going to ask into too much detail, but what sort of things did happen in your past? I'm just intrigued.
As a young man, I like to have fun, that's for sure. And, had some fun in the, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of drugs, and, J-Muse issues, if you will. But fortunately, for my I would say fortunately for me, I figured out where I was going really quickly. So at 24, I put the plug in the jug and, pretty much quit everything, all the substances that were killing me, particularly alcohol. I mean, alcohol is really, it's funny, like alcohol is the touchstone. If I drank, that would lead to all the other crap. It's not like, so I really see myself as an alcoholic, as they say. And for me, I know that, when I drink, it just doesn't work out. And there's no one who knew me then who would ever say that was a bad choice. So I sobered up when I was very young. And, and Gene and I got married. And then I started my career and all was happy and well. And we started having kids. And, I went into IT, which... I was always good in the performance area and the technical area. So I got into the computer side. So I was having a very successful career in the IT industry. Worked for a company about 10 to 12 years. I don't remember how long I was there. And, one day, it was in 2009 in September, after, all the finance shit was going on. Everything was dropping out. And, I got laid off because essentially, I was a Jersey salary in Virginia, which is a lower, and it just made sense. And it was weird, too, because all the details don't matter. But I was laid off, and there I am, a guy with no military background, stuck in a very military area. And just, I don't know, after that whole fucking the stock market and all that shit, and all the banking crisis, I just couldn't get arrested, couldn't get a job. And as time went, you go from making a nice salary to making about $300 every 2 weeks on unemployment. Slowly your expenses eat away. Kid, I've always had depression issues. I've always, you go through jags, and I just think some people are susceptible to it. Back in the olden days, they called it melancholy. Read about Lincoln; he was prone to it. His wife apparently was really bad. Anyway. Yeah, so I've always had those symptoms and those problems, and I can go into jags. But, yeah, definitely as soon as, it was situational by far. You start losing shit, you go into depression. So, yeah, for a while, eventually we had to give up our home and all that shit. Kept trying to make a go of it there. Kept trying to make a go. But, no, we ended up losing everything, and that's when we realized we had to come back to New Jersey, where we had some support.
So what was it about tough shit that helped you get through it all?
I'll tell you. Here's what it was. All right, so I moved back to Jersey. I'm on the balls of my ass. I'm living essentially in the same house I was raised in. And, here I am with my family. And, I'm feeling... here. I would talk to friends. I'd be like, this is the best I can do. And I'm stone cold sober. You know what I mean? Like... Yeah. that was the irony to me. Like, had I been drinking, this is the kind of shit you expect. You know, to lose everything and to, you know, have your life ripped apart and all that. But, you know, I wasn't drinking and my life was falling apart. And, you know, I had to struggle with the age-old, you know, shit sandwich of, you know, bad things happen to good people, even if you're doing the right things, you know. So I basically had to learn how to chew a shit sandwich for a while. And one of the things that helped was, you know, we'd moved here and I read Tough Shit. Well, I forget how like which happened. I think I read Tough Shit, then I got in this car accident. But yeah, I read Tough Shit, and essentially what it was Kevin saying, and you know, when you become unemployed, at least here in the U.S., you know, during that period, there was a mad scramble to figure out how to, you know, people were unemployed for long periods in 2009 to 2010. They just were. It was a crisis here like we hadn't seen. And like communities started forming like job groups where unemployed people would get together and coach each other and stuff. And I actually joined one of those. And through that, someone turned me on to this book by a guy's name was Gary Urbanchuk. It was called Crush It. And it laid out sort of a lot of what social media, podcasting, and the guy was basically a booster saying, social media is the future. Get in now, you know, figure out how to sell yourself, figure out what you can do, get on social media, because, you know, this is where advertisers are going. And he was sounding sort of the charge. The only problem was he wasn't telling you, he didn't give me the piece to what to do with this information. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, I know that I know that the ability to podcast is there. I know that the ability to get on, you know, social media is there, but you know, I didn't have the what to do. When I read Tough Shit, that was what to do. You know, Kevin gave me permission to be a goofball and just blab and don't worry about it. And if I put passion into it, it doesn't matter. And because of my technology background and my sound background, because I was also a musician, I had a sound company at one point, I said, I can do this. There's no reason I can't do this. So
I completely get that.
Yeah.
The reason I do it.
Yeah. I mean, it gave me the permission I needed.
So taking us back to the beginning slightly, how did you even discover Kevin? Obviously, I know.
Oh God, I'm a fan since way back. If you know Pork Chop Murphy, who I host Bone Crushing Juggernaut with, Joe Greshko, he was a big film buff back in the 90s. I mean, granted, we were kind of party animals and, you know, being crazy, but he was one of those film buff guys. And I remember seeing the same Movie Maker magazine or fanzine in his room that you would later see if you've ever seen the Snowball Effect.
I've seen.
Yeah,
I love that documentary.
Yeah. So you know the Harvey Keitel picture?
Yes.
Yeah, that he had that. I mean, he had those zines, so he was sort of in the know, and he was the one who put Kevin on our radar, saying, "Hey, yeah, this guy who was, you know, he's from South Jersey, and which we would describe as South Jersey. It's kind of the shore, but he basically hipped us to Kevin and put it on the radar." Now, the irony was, I ended up going to Woodstock '94. I had like 90 days of sobriety at the time, and you know, people thought we were crazy for doing it, but we went and we stayed sober. But it turns out the Clerks debuted or played at Woodstock '94. Now, because we weren't going crazy, we were asleep. You know, we were
It screened at Woodstock.
Yeah, I found this out somewhat recently, that it screened at Woodstock '94 as like, you know, because they were trying to, you know, the cutting edge, like 2 a.m. or something. But because we weren't crazy party animals at the time, we were, you know, safely asleep in our tent. Had I known, I could have seen Clerks just that night for free.
I was going to say, life might have been a bit different if you'd known.
Yeah. Well, it all worked out anyway, because we saw...
Well, yeah, it's safe to say.
Yeah, we jumped in at Clark's. Although, I think we couldn't find it in the theater, and like everyone else, we had to see it on home video. But, you know, I had worked in a convenience store as a kid, so it clicked with me right away. I had actually worked for a Krauser's, which is the same one, which is one of the markets Kev worked for, ironically.
So I take it as soon as you seen Clerks, you were...
Oh, I was hooked.
You were in.
Yeah, it was speaking my language to me. I was born in 1970. Kevin was born in 1970. You know, we had all the same touchstones. You know, he was talking my language.
So I'll take it you've stayed on ever since.
Oh, yeah.
It is ever done.
I think the only one we didn't see in the theater after Mallrats, because Mallrats was another one that was hard to find in the theater. The only one we didn't see in the theater was Jersey Girl, my wife and I. But every other one we've seen in the theater, including Tusk.
See, I still haven't seen it.
Is it out there yet? I don't even know.
There's been no word of it.
Really?
I heard there was a premiere in Leeds, I believe it was, at some film festival, and Kev was going to Skype in, but that's it.
That's weird. I heard. Yeah. I thought I heard December, maybe?
That's what I heard, and then Kev tweeted earlier on that it's coming out on VOD in December.
Oh, wow.
And DVD and Blu-ray, so I don't know what's going on with it. I just know I'm desperate to watch it.
Well, maybe that'll just be easier anyway. Let me tell you something. I can tell you exactly. You've listened to the episode, right?
Smartcast.
Yeah. You've essentially seen the movie.
It's that close.
It really is. The only real difference was, if you remember early on in that conversation, Kev goes, "But no, we don't want to cut away to the outside world. We want to stay right here." The only change was you do cut away to the outside world now.
Which good, really, because obviously it's expanding it into the horror show.
Yeah, exactly. So you get the build and all that, but all of the walrus stuff, and that's what I found the most amazing. I'm like, I know this story. You know what I mean? Yeah, I tell you,
it's probably the one that intrigues me in his moose jaws, though.
You want to know the biggest laugh I had in it?
Go on.
When you see Ralph Garman, and you'll know why when you see the scene. Unless
I've heard Ralph's scene is incredible, but I know nothing about it.
There is a visual thing that will make that. I cracked up. I was the only person. I did one of those like fucking Cape Fear laughs for a minute. I was like the only guy laughing in the theater for a second. But
I get the feeling I'll be like that when I watch it. I'll be with my other half, because she's not really a podcast fan. I'll be dying laughing at things. She's just like, what?
Yeah. And I also love the Guy Lapointe episode, so I love that. The Guy Lapointe is where we secretly got our name and didn't realize it. When I first named the show, it just seemed to come out of nowhere. But then I love that episode. And later, Neil G. came to me and pointed out, he says, "I know where you got your name." I said, "What? Really?" I thought it just came out of nowhere. He goes, "Listen to that episode with Guy Lapointe." And then the last 10 minutes, there's this ThatMan shit, where they were goofing around talking about ThatMan. And
I don't remember that episode very well, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's the one where the maple syrup gang. Yeah, what happened was in Canada, hence the kickoff. This was based on a real thing. There is a maple syrup cartel here in Canada. You know, they have a strategic reserve of maple syrup in the same way countries have of oil or whatever, because it's a commodity. It makes sense.
Well, yeah.
But these guys were stealing from the reserve, and they stole 1 million pounds of syrup or whatever they stole. And so that kicked off their imagination. And the name of the investigator investigating that crime was Guy Lapointe. And you know what's funny? Go back and listen to that episode too. I even commented on Twitter, and Kevin liked it. But when you listen to that episode, Tusk is nowhere in the picture. You know what I mean? It hasn't been thought of. It's not invented yet. But there's the Guy Lapointe piece, fully realized.
And what a person to get to play him as well.
Well, Johnny Depp.
Oh, amazing. I really can't wait to see it. It's killing me because I've got friends in Canada. They're like, "Oh, it's amazing. We'll have to talk about it when you've watched it." I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah, I realized, I thought we threw in some spoilers inadvertently. And I always promised I'd never spoil anything. So I hope I cut it, but I might not have.
I don't remember hearing any spoilers.
Yeah, maybe I did end up cutting it. I talked to somebody about it, and I was like, oh, shit, we might be giving too much detail. Again, though, if you've heard the Smodcast, you sort of know. There's not going to be any real surprises for you.
So, he admitted to having an obsession with the man himself. It's not a bad thing. I'm probably obsessed with him as well. Not as much as you are. I won't take that away from you, but...
Dude, we can all... There's plenty of room for obsession for everyone. I mean, yeah, the best way to... He's my hero. He's become... And as Jean just pointed out this morning, she's like, we're talking about this weight loss thing. She's like, look, fucking Kev saved your life again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah.
I call him my hero because, since discovering him and his podcasts and him, pushing for people to go out and do this thing, I've started doing this podcasting thing and I really enjoy it. And, it gives you confidence to be yourself, if that makes sense.
Fucking A, man. You know what? That is right where I'm at because I think, anyone who's been unemployed knows. Like, when you have no confidence, they can smell that on you in an interview like stink on shit. You know what I mean? But through this process, through putting the show together and first Bone Crushing Juggernaut and then ThatMan on ThatMan and then the fucking getting on Pod U and the Podfest, I got my confidence back. You know what I mean? I'm ready. No matter what happens, I know I can do things. I got my confidence back.
So this is why when I sent out that tweet earlier saying, later on, I'm talking to the man who's living the dream. Because you are. Just the things you just listed then. I'll talk about it in a bit more detail, but you're living the fucking dream, man.
Well, thank you. That I consider an amazing compliment. You want to know what's interesting? I don't know how it's happening. You know what I mean?
That's some advice. Fuck.
That's the thing. I mean, obviously, location. Yeah. It's a big help that I live in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey, and I know New Jersey. So that gives me some access to the stash and people around there. But other than that, I mean, it's all been a case of, let me try this. Let me try that. Let me try that. And with each, let me try and get Scott Schiaffo on the show. Okay. Let me get, why? And then Scott kind of kicked the door open. From Scott, I racked up, because he said nice things and said other, told Brian O'Halloran that I was cool and not a whack job. And, that, believe me, I'm sure that's a big thing.
Scott is an absolute hero.
Yeah, I know I actually heard his show on your show or your show.
Did you?
Yeah, I listened.
Amazing.
Well, Scott's a buddy now. It's weird.
It was just the fact that I was, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this podcast. Who do I want on it? I was like, I tell you what, I talk to this guy on Twitter all the time, and people know him. I sent him a message. I was like, I'm starting a podcast. Would you be interested in coming on? He's like, yeah, here's my Skype details. See you a bit. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, the guy is a great guy to have in your corner.
Oh, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy to have in your corner. He'll go.
I don't know if you've heard. Did you hear what he did for my dad's wedding as well?
Yes, I did. I did hear this.
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I heard that. Why don't you refresh the memory for those who don't know?
It's similar. I was at my dad's wedding. I was an usher. He was giving out presents and not. While he's doing his speech, I'm just opening this bag, and the next thing I know, I've got a copy of Linger signed. I've got his book signed. I've got 3 promotional photos signed. And when I say these things are signed, Linger, the case was signed, the DVD was signed, and the insert for the DVD was signed. Everything was signed.
And he had to ship it. International.
Yeah, and he shipped it. And my dad was like, I sent him a message asking him if I could get something from him. And he ended up sending all of this. I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, he's a cool guy and a giver.
Such a nice guy. Unbelievable.
Yeah. We were very fortunate to have gotten him on the show. And like I said, he helped in a sense because, he was able to say that we weren't nuts.
Yeah. And he likes to say in Facebook picture comments, "You rock."
Yes, and he likes those stickers, man. Loves them.
Oh yeah, he does.
He's slapping those stickers, especially on the Facebook side. He's not as Twittery. He's much more Facebook.
Which suits me well, because I'm more Facebook than Twitter, to be fair.
Yeah, it's so funny. You have to keep track of who's what.
Yeah, I use my podcast Twitter more than I use my personal Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I prefer Twitter. However, as a result of all my Twitter, my Facebook is now becoming a lot cooler. It was like, for years, my Facebook account was, static or stagnant, really. Like, just friends, nobody, it didn't expand, didn't go anywhere. And I think that's the problem with Facebook in general. Everyone's very they don't want to engage in a discussion. Everyone's like, someone out there may get me. You know what I mean? Kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas Twitter's the exact opposite. The idea is, hey, let's exchange ideas. Let's talk,
I do agree with that.
Yeah, so
friendlier. I know it sounds weird to say, but it does.
Well, you're going to meet people that you don't know. You're more likely to meet people you don't know on Twitter than on Facebook. It's just that simple. Because you're going to find someone in our case, Kevin Smith. So you're going to find tons of people into Kevin Smith, like chatting about it, and aren't afraid to be your friend or follow you or whatever,
Just then, people like Kevin Smith are more likely to hear what you say as a fan.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because obviously he's favorited and replied to tweets in the past. I guarantee if I wrote in his Facebook wall, it wouldn't have even got read.
I know anytime Kevin favorites anything I say, I walk a couple of inches off the ground that day. Especially early on. I mean, the first time I heard him mention BC Juggernaut on a show, God, I jumped up and down like I was Rocky at the top of a hill.
So, as we were saying, obviously you've admitted to being obsessed with Kevin Smith.
Oh, yeah.
But what about it? What about the man and his works was it that kind of pulled you in? Was it from Tough Shit that made you obsessed, or was it...
Oh, no. I was one of those guys who not only... I don't know why I didn't jump onto the podcast sooner. Because, it's in my wheelhouse. I think I had my head up my ass at work, and I stayed more to the movie level. But meanwhile, I was still the guy. I've seen every movie with the commentary. I've seen every movie with every commentary. You know what I mean? That I have. I had I love the spoken word shit. I loved I have all the, an evening with. So I stayed up with all that. I don't know why I didn't jump onto the podcast. And ironically, a couple friends at work had mentioned it too. Oh yeah, he's doing this podcast thing. They're funny. You should check it out. I think at the time I was still like, yeah, podcasting, huh? Yeah. That'll never catch on.
Very little do you know.
Yeah, dude, that's so stupid. How can, let me put it this, how can it not catch on? I mean, where are we going? The only people who want old style media, broadcast media, are boomers, and, my generation's kind of split. But millennials and on, they don't give a shit about, timetables and crap. That's just me.
It's the world of on-demand.
Yeah, it really is. And podcasts are an on-demand, listenable media. Everybody has a phone now.
I don't remember the last time I listened to music on the way to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I listen to podcasts all the time.
Yeah. And it's new. It's people, like people like me. Oh, I don't know if I can catch on. Or people like, podcasts are over. Podcasts are over. What are you, a fucking idiot? That's like saying, yeah, the phone's over. You know what I mean? Like, what? Are you nuts? So, it's just getting started, and it's free. It's like you can stake your claim. There's no gatekeepers. There's no assholes telling you what you can say, what you can't say. And nobody can fire you or remove you.
It's amazing. It's so much freedom in it. It's the fact, apart from the Kevin Smith ones, one of my favourite podcasts, all they do is sit down and watch WWE pay-per-views and talk about them. And I love it.
You're a wrestling guy, huh?
Oh, yeah. And it's like, if this was TV or normal radio, it's never going to happen.
So what is it about wrestling?
Since I was a kid, I've just never grown out of it.
Really? So you were one of those guys who at one point thought it was real?
Oh, I never thought it was real. I could always tell.
See, now that doesn't make any sense to me. If you've always known it was fake, why?
But it's the same way of we love Kevin Smith movies. They're not real.
I don't know about that.
I think wrestling's like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah, well, I love marmalade. I don't get me wrong. I can appreciate wrestling, and I can appreciate, aspects of it. I used to listen to this one radio DJ in the area who has one name, Lionel, and he used to talk about it because he grew up in Florida, and he used to talk about old days wrestling, and I would appreciate his appreciation for it, but yeah, it was never my thing. It's kind of like Kiss. I was into it when I was a kid, but yeah.
You should mention them. They're my favourite band in the whole world.
They were really cool when I was 7. I think I learned, this is the truth. I was just thinking about this earlier today. I think I learned to approximate dates in my life because of Kiss. When I was around 7, that's when I first thought consciously about time in terms of span. And I remember looking at my Kiss Alive 2 album and seeing like the history of other Kiss albums. And like, okay, it's 1977 now, so that means 76 last year. This came out. You know what I mean? So Kiss, I guess I owe that to Kiss. I almost wish I had the Kiss 1976, their bicentennial poster that they used to have. Quite a classic.
Oh, I wish I had that. I wasn't even that.
But again, I'm not a Kiss fan. Although, when I first moved back to Jersey, I did debate joining a Kiss cover band.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, just because I thought it would have been a hell lot of fun.
See, I'd love to do that, but I'm so not musically talented, it's unbelievable.
But I think I would have been too tall for Peter Criss.
Yeah, just get a low drum so you'll be fine.
Yeah. While standing there.
So, what does Jenna think of your obsession?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What does Jenna think of your obsession?
Jean,
sorry.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people have... It's weird. I don't think about it, but I guess it's that French spelling or whatever. People say Jeannie and Janine, and yeah, but it's Jean. And she's always been with me. I mean, she's always been a fan. She hasn't been like, deep end... she didn't feel any need to watch the movies with the commentary or anything like that. I think that's really a guy kind of thing too.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah, but she's always been a fan. When I first started podcasting with Joe, she thought that was a good outlet, so she was very encouraging. And then when I said I want to start a second show, she was encouraging. She was like, "Yeah, go ahead." It wasn't until a few weeks in I realized I need someone else. And I pulled her in, and she's been... It's actually, the irony is, people say you can't work with your spouse. It brought us a lot closer.
I think Kevin Smith sort of helped you again.
Yeah. It has really brought us tighter. It's made us a lot tighter.
I know. I'd love to get my other half into helping me with this sort of thing, but I don't think it's her kind of thing. I don't even, she started listening to the first episode and lost interest.
Isn't that funny?
Not her thing.
Isn't that funny? It all goes back to that, what was it? That Luke something in the Bible. And I don't know my Bible that well. I can't quote, but Jesus did have one thing right. He said a prophet will never be recognized in his hometown. Because that's that fucking Jesus kid from down the road. I don't want to listen to his podcast. But meanwhile, the guy in fucking the UK will listen to your podcast because he doesn't know you're that idiot from down the road. There's hope, folks. Take the shotgun out of your mouth and podcast. Put a mic in it.
That's a tagline needed.
There you go. Yeah, I think
take the shotgun out of your mouth and put a microphone in it.
There you go. There we go. We're going to start the podcast, the Suicide Prevention Podcast Network. I mean, I think it's as simple as, because really, I've been in therapy in my life, but therapy for me for the past 2 years has been talking on podcasts, and getting my shit out and, exercising my demons and being creative. And if I can do it, anybody can.
I'd go with that. I'm a lot happier with myself now I'm doing this.
Yeah,
Even if no one listens, just doing it. So as we're just finished talking about Kevin, obviously, what is if you could pick a favourite of his movies, what would you say?
That's a hard choice. Not that they're mine, or it's like I'm picking between my children, but I would say it's a toss. I mean, Clerks is obviously amazing because it's his calling card. It's what got him out the door. Without Clerks, nothing else happens. So that is a strong contender. Then Clerks 2, I find amazing. I think it's a perfect movie. I love watching it. I know there's people out there who shit on it, but they're out of their minds. It's a beautiful movie, and it's a sequel that stands alone, which not a lot of sequels can do. Think about how many sequels can do that. And it's totally watchable, even if you've never seen the first Clerks. It's fucking funny as shit. You got the donkey show. I mean, come on. My son, who's 16 now, one of the funniest things we'll ever say to each other is, ooh, cake. You know what I mean? So, that's a great movie. And then, I think it's a three-way tie. Tusk is now definitely in the third, and here's why. Because I think it represents Kev's full circle. It's his, it's him chasing whimsy. It represents him getting out of his midlife crisis, getting back into film, and it takes the podcast element and folds it into the film element, and you get this amazing stew that once again is 10 years ahead of its time. Just like with every movie he seems to do.
I'm kind of with you on that. It's a three-way tie for myself. Clerks, because it's where it all began.
Yeah.
Clerks 2 is if I'm ever in a really good mood and I just want to see put a film on, Clerks 2 goes straight in.
Yeah.
It's such a happy film. And
even that behind the scenes documentary is really good.
Yeah.
I don't know that it has her name or anything, but it's whatever's on the DVD or the Blu-ray.
And my other one is Strike Back, because that was my door in. That's how I discovered it, Strike Back.
I love Strike Back, don't get me wrong. I that was so much fun. Such an inside movie.
Yeah.
But
you know what, because I saw that first, and I found it was so funny, and then I watched the other films, and I found it funny on a whole other layer, because there was so many little jokes I didn't get the first time around.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Saw that in the theater, had a blast.
Yeah, that's how I saw it in the cinema. I was literally walking past, we were going to cinema, I was like, that looks funny, let's go see that. And I was a changed man ever since.
Yeah, I guess if you hadn't seen any other movie prior to that, it was kind of like a Cheech and Chong. The other day I was thinking to myself, Pumpkin Escobar.
I love that song. It's like it's long at all, it's brilliant.
Did you ever hear the story behind that? Kev told it. It was just like that character didn't have a name, but then he said, "Can I get a name?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, what do you want the name to be?" And he's like, "Pumpkin Escobar," without missing a beat. That's when he knew Tracy Morgan was brilliant, and he wanted muscle too. So he got, because he thought apparently Tracy Morgan thought it would be good if he had muscle, because they were both, one guy had muscle, so it'd be like the counter. And apparently that was his makeup guy.
Really?
Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts on Jersey Girl and Cop Out? Obviously, Kevin's so critical of those two movies.
Well, here's what I would say. Well, Cop Out was what it was. It was, Kev didn't write it. It's a funny film. It's it's one of those HBO buddy cop movies that you'll see on a Saturday, and it's got Bruce Willis in it, so you probably won't turn it off. But again, I think we all pretty much know what happened with Cop Out, working in a hostile environment. But yeah, he pulled the film out. Apparently, he made money. Yada yada. But it's interesting because you really do. I think that film reflects so much of where Kevin was at the time. I think as a Kevin researcher. He was trying to figure out what the fuck he was at that point, I think. Like his career he'd come to this point where, Zach and Miri had just, kind of opened to a thud, which everybody thought was $100 million. I remember when I heard about Zach and Miri at work, someone, what's he working on? Oh, he's working on Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I was like, how's that going to fail? Oh, and it's got that kid? This is going to be $100 million movie. And I don't know shit about movies. I'm just a guy in an office. But hearing it, I'm like, oh, wow, Kevin's going to have his first big hit. Because, Knocked Up was a big hit and all that shit. So you just figured it's got all the same people and it's Kev. And again, as he'll point out, it was the marketing at the time of a new established movie company that kind of did him. And he'll even say Zack and Miri was him having nothing to say and trying to cash in on Apatow. Now, Jersey Girl, I've only, I held off on watching it a long time, and I don't even know why, but I've watched it a bunch of times somewhat recently. And I think that is a pivotal piece to Kev. Well, it's schmaltzy. First of all, he kind of went for a little schmaltzy. That's probably its biggest sin. But, I mean, that movie is a love letter to his hometown and is a love letter to his newborn daughter.
Yeah, it screams it all over the whole film.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful film.
And you want to know what's funny? People shit on it. It was the butt of the joke. But, like, say, recently, if you listen to episode 37 of our show, I got to host a panel at Wilkes Bar with the 4 people from Clerks. It's Ernie O'Donnell, it's Marilyn Gigliotti, it's Brian O'Halloran, and Scott Schiaffo. Now, at some point, Ernie brings up Jersey Girl as sort of citing a movie that people bust on with Jersey Girl. And it was funny because the crowd sort of reacts and says, no, it's like, no, there's a groan. And matter of fact, even Marilyn Gigliotti, you can hear her on stage because the mic's right by her. She like, no, we love Jersey Girl. But now there's sort of a reaction by crowds when people shit on Jersey Girl. Now it's like, again, takes 10 years, but now people are like, fuck you, that's a good movie.
Like when he was doing the Q&As, like people come up and go, hi Kev, I love all your movies, including Jersey Girl.
Yeah.
People feel they need to point it out.
Well, it's because, think about it, Kevin does that thing where, he takes his least successful film at the time and makes it the butt of the joke. Yeah, so for a long time it was Mallrats, then it became, Jersey Girl, and so on and so forth. Now it'll be Tusk because he's busting on Tusk a lot, even though I'm sure he doesn't feel that deep down inside.
Now, I know you've met Kevin on several occasions.
Just twice.
Is it just twice?
Just twice.
I assume you've told him about your show.
All right. I don't know how much I'm inferring and filling in the gaps, but it was my perception the first time I met him, he was aware of the show. And that's why he actually... It was weird. We were behind... It was at the Montclair Film Festival. Show was over. They ushered Kevin off to a side door where they were taking press pictures and stuff. But there was, it's like a side door where there's like those little small glass windows.
Yeah.
There's a security guy in front of the door. He, and people are starting to collect, and he's starting to shoo people off. He's not getting too aggressive. And I said, at a certain point, he was about to shoo me off. And so I took out my phone, and I opened up the podcast, with the goofy cover with the thumbs.
Yeah.
And I held it up to the window. So basically, I'm holding up my phone with that picture on it at the window. And I'm standing there for a minute or two, and the problem was Kev wasn't turning. So it was like, I'm so close, and this guy is really now getting annoyed with me. So I just subtly tapped the glass 2 or 3 times. Finally, Kev glances over. He does one of those double takes, like glances over, turns, then turns again, and then goes, his face lights up, and he goes, and he just waves me back. Come on back. So that's why I infer that he already knew the show, because, and then I remember at the time, the most important thing I wanted to communicate to Kev was to sort of bridge the two worlds. So one of the first things I blurted out to him was, oh, and I'm also BC Juggernaut. I feel like a big dope now when I think back. Well, I wanted him to understand that I'm also BC Juggernaut from fucking, from Edumacation. I'm not just that man. And I don't know if he knew that. So that was important to me. And I guess it clocked in at the time. So I think that was when some of it clicked. But I could be completely, again, making shit up, and I don't know Kev's mind. So, yeah. And when you meet Kev, there's at least for me, if you're a fan, there's sort of an out-of-body kind of feeling. A lot of adrenaline, a lot of endorphins. So, some of it's a blur the first time. So
I've never been fortunate. I was close to meeting Jamie Hughes. I went to see Holden live when they were in the UK not long ago, and he was out the back.
I met him recently.
To get to fans, people kept pushing the guards and stuff, pushing him back into the building.
I only met him recently at ThatMan on the ThatMan over Manhattan. But what blew me away was Jay is Jay.
Yeah,
he really is. He's like an ADD hamster or something. You know what I mean? But he's very nice. He's also very nice. I mean, he stood outside of that show afterwards for a good 40 minutes, just taking pictures with people. Outside on the street.
I was just asking because I was wondering, like, if you told him about the show, I was wondering what he'd said on it, if he had any.
Oh yeah. I mean, okay. Let me go back. So yeah, the first time I'm like, blah 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 blah. I'm saying, and that man, a fat man, and I said to him, I don't know how to say this, but I don't know that I'll ever get this opportunity again. And you always say, why not? So is there any chance I can get you to come on the show? And he said, a podcast that's about me? How could I not come on the show? And then immediately in my insecurity, I said, that's not a yes. And he said, yes, I'll do the show. Now, our fuck up in retrospect was getting so excited, and then like Kevin going and getting distracted by someone else, and so us blowing out of there and not getting someone's info. So we were just like, how's this going to happen now? And so we started reaching out to the camp, and it seemed to just be sitting for a while until recently. Yeah, until just that man on ThatMan, everything. I keep saying the wrong name. ThatMan over Manhattan. Everything came to kind of a head, I guess.
Is this something you can't unveil yet?
Oh no, I can tell you. Sort of EOD, Ernie and I were talking beforehand, and he knew the situation. He knew Kev was going to be there. And so he said, why don't you, he kind of put me up to asking this question, which was he said, go on the show, and go ask him the question, ask him to come on the show publicly in front of the fucking crowd. But he had already talked to him the night before, so he knew it was coming. So it wasn't like Kev was really surprised. But I guess, saying someone's going to do something and actually doing it are two different things. So yeah, I got on front of the line, and I got to ask him if he'd come on the show publicly right there, and he said he would. And then I asked him another question. I don't want to blow the whole thing. And again, I told you a little bit at the beginning, but then because of David Mannheimer and Ernie, we finally got to meet with Kevin and Megan and kind of put that together. And actually recently we've got things have started up with Ashley. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We were supposed to be November, but I've also been told by people that, expect it to move at least 3 or 4 times. To which I'm like, I don't care. I am very patient. I have no problem with that. In some respects, it builds dramatic tension with the show. I'm good. Just so long I have faith Kev will deliver. He said he's going to do it, and he's going to do it. It's just a matter of time. And that's what everyone else said. That's the other thing everyone else said. If he said he's going to do it, he's going to do it.
Listen, I just really hope it works out for you. You've earned it. You've worked so hard to get there.
Well, like I said, I just kind of put one foot in front of the other and hoped for the best. But yeah, I'm proud. Don't get me wrong. I'm very proud of what's happened. I'm very thankful for what's happened. I'm thankful for people who listen to me because I'm an idiot. So, as my wife will quickly point out.
So, just moving on from the Kevin stuff. How did you discover podcasts?
Again, I knew that they were there back when I read the Gary Urbanchuk video. And I had probably dipped in. Hey, how about this? back when the year my son was born. I was in the 90s. I was working at Lipton, and I remember listening to what they were calling at the time internet radio. But it was a podcast, essentially. There was no distribution platform. They were, you just downloaded a file from them, and I think it might even have been a Wave at the time. But it was an RPG show, we're talking D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. And I just found it fascinating that these guys were doing that because they had Monty Cook on, and I'm like, wow, this is cool that you can do this. But again, I was a listener, so I didn't really think to actualize anything.
So I discovered a podcast around 10 years ago. Same thing as you. It was called a Kiss podcast. That's what they talked about.
Yeah.
It was a case of, you download a file off and then stick it on your MP3 player, like you would a song.
Yeah, or just listen on your computer, whatever.
And now, all of a sudden, they're taking over the world. It's incredible.
Well, I think part of the reason it became what it is because with RSS feeds, the ability to now, when they upgraded to the latest versions of HTML, you could now do these feeds that would send out updates. They were structured in a way to allow for updates or to notification and all that shit. Tell you the truth, I don't even know all the ins and outs. I just know I had to learn a lot of them very quickly.
Yeah, so my buddy had to post and started looking into it. Like, Jesus, this is complicated.
I know HTML. I can do HTML, so it's not like it's a stretch. But it was just understanding the structure and making sure I knew what the fuck it was doing. And it was also my software sort of pushed me into doing more hand editing of RSS because it always, whenever I do an update, it lays down a basic SMS file over anything I already have. I mean, it updates it with all my new data, but it takes out all my iTunes tags, essentially. That's what I lose. So all my iTunes tags are written out because it doesn't, I guess they don't have rights to write iTunes tag. I don't know why it doesn't do it, but then I have to go in and edit all that shit by hand every time again. So I've learned quite a bit. No one's going to want to listen to this at all.
Thanks.
I just lost all your crowd. They're like, he's talking about editing SMS files and fucking RSS feeds.
There'll be one nerdy guy who's like, I know exactly what he means.
But again, it's another thing that's challenged me. It's pushed my fucking knowledge. It's, I didn't know shit about social media when I got on. I mean, I knew what everyone else knew. I'm on Facebook. But social media isn't that hard. Social media is fun. You gotta want it. That's all.
So what made you want to start a podcast then?
I was fucking depressed, and I thought it would be a good way to get my demons out, do something about it, talk. I've always been kind of gregarious and a performer. I was in bands as a kid, so it's in my wheelhouse, I guess. I listened to a lot of Howard Stern as a kid. And I was always kind of putting my own radio show together while listening to him. Howard was sort of a big innovator in the late 80s and 90s. And there are a lot of kids who were raised on that guy. I mean, all What Say You Are, I listened every morning for years and years and years. It wasn't until I think I moved away that I fell off the Howard Stern bandwagon and just never kind of picked it back up.
So I only really know of Howard Stern because I saw his autobiography film, Private Parts.
Yeah.
It was just on a movie channel one day and I watched it and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I didn't have a clue who he was.
Yeah, I think this is, truthfully, now that I think back, you mentioning that movie brought back my memory. Howard used to really bash dudes when they would divorce their wives, when they got famous and divorced their wives. And he would always go back to, I stay with my wife Allison, blah 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 blah. Then they got divorced, and guess what? That movie makes that whole the whole point of that movie was what he used to claim. I stick with my wife, and I guess he kind of, and that's when he got divorced. I kind of jumped the shark with Howard. So
Like I said, that is all I know from him, really.
Yeah, well, that movie is funny, too.
That, and he has amazing hair.
I wonder if, I guess he's on that, he was on a reality show here. He's on, America's Got Talent is what he's on, I think. Yeah. He's probably making millions on it, too.
So, was Bone Crushing Juggernaut your first podcast?
Yes, it was. First time out the gate.
So, what's the story behind Bone Crushing Juggernaut? What started that going?
I mean, essentially, it was a rip-off of Tell 'em Steve Dave. It was, let's get friends together and just talk and see what happens. And so I brought in the original kind of vision was 3 people. It was supposed to be me, Joe, and Rob. But along the way, if you listen to that, there's a bit of, now going back, there's very much soap opera aspects to the show. It's got maybe a fun journey for somebody because you get to see, a Rob experience where, he comes in, then he's out, then he's in, then, all kinds of little personality quirks throughout. Yeah. And what it was me sort of just playing, figuring out what we could do next. And then we hooked up with, it made some very key, I met Mark Live from Chunder Tunes through that podcast. I met Neil G through that podcast, and it got me started. And it's still going, although we did have a big lag and it almost died, but we just restarted it.
So you said that you started ThatMan on ThatMan as your co-host wouldn't really indulge your obsession.
Yeah, I would drift there, but it would annoy him more than it would, it would, I get it. If someone likes to talk about something so much that you're not into, eventually you're like, shut the fuck up. I'm sick of this. You almost don't want to hear about it in protest. And he liked Kevin. That's the irony. You know what I mean? It's not like he disliked Kevin. It's just he wasn't gaga,
Well, you said earlier, wasn't he the guy that introduced you to Kevin?
Yeah, exactly. He was the guy. He was the film buff. Joe was the film buff. The annoying cineast.
So what made you decide to just bite the bullet and think, you know what, if I can't talk about him here, I'll make my own podcast all about Kevin?
It came to me instantly. It was, I've been doing this thing. And again, we were struggling with personnel issues, I guess, commitment levels, just I was really into podcasting. Joe liked doing the show, but was not necessarily a believer in podcasting. So a lot of it was me pulling Joe. Certainly in the beginning, it was definitely me pulling Joe. But over time, we settled into our thing. But, I needed more. And we weren't sure if we were going to do bi-weekly or weekly. So there's periods where we drift in and out. And I said, you know what? I want to do another show. I want to do it weekly. I want it to be just about Kev. And I had been thinking about it for weeks. But it wasn't until I talked to Neil and Neil G and kind of said, I've been thinking about this thing. And he said, you should go for it. And then I talked to Mark Live also. And he was like, yeah, you should do it. So both of them encouraged me. So, and one night, just a day or two later, I said, all right, Neil, you're going to be my first guest. We're just going to do this thing and it was me just staking the claim, I like to say. I didn't know what I was doing. I was flying blind. I didn't really know what the show would be, but I felt I have this name. I have this idea. I want to stick my stick in the dirt before someone else does it.
You should come close with the guys like Shaffo, EOD, O'Halloran and whatnot. Did that come about just from having them on?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was the introduction. You work a little with them. As you would know, you work with a little bit with your guests beforehand, but Gene's sort of been doing a lot more of that than I have. And as a matter of fact, since Ernie, I purposely try and stay out of that, because it's better, if I do. But, it's just sort of developed over Ernie's been interesting because I just feel like we hit it off when we met and it's been sort of natural. We kind of talk and chat and you know, I don't want to be like, ooh, you know, I'm Ernie's best friend or anything, but no, nothing like that. But it's just felt natural. So, and if someone had I said the other day, if someone had told me 2-3 years ago that would be the case, I would have told them they were fucking out of their mind. You know what I mean? But it also comes down, these people are good people. You know what I mean? What you see, you know, it's not bullshit. Kev, I can only assume Kev really does have a good sense of people and only hangs around people that, you know, are generally good-hearted, you know?
Yeah, I'd give you that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason, because who the fuck am I, you know? I mean, they've also been very gracious and very encouraging and you know, like, you know, you feel a need, you're galvanizing the fan base and that kind of stuff. So they've been very encouraging and supportive, and that's been great. I would always think that they were being more so than I deserved. So, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Again, this has been sort of, I can't believe this has happened kind of experience at the same time. So
you're saying that they've been supportive and stuff. That's kind of really segues me into what I'll ask, and that's about you hosting the Clerks panel at Mr. Hush's Weekend of Fear.
That was another one of those. But that was a coincidence. I mean, I didn't go up there to host that panel. I went up there to interview the four of them, because that's sort of what we'd agreed up front that, you know, because Marilyn, I'd had her on the show, but it was via Skype. And originally I was like, well, Marilyn's going to be in town. Let me interview her. And then when I saw that they were all at this panel, I was like, well, why don't I get an interview of you guys while you're there? And they were like, sure. So, and then I got there and we're like, you know, trying to logistically figure it out. And it was Ernie who was like, you should host the panel. We killed two birds with one stone. It's all done.
So there was a plan on, the panel was already planned.
The panel. There was just, I don't know that there was a moderator or they bumped the moderator and for me. So, but it
sitting at home now going, I'm supposed to panel a fucking show.
Yeah, Rob Bruce and Ming were also in the crowd that night. And yeah, so that's how that happened. Again, it's this Kev magic that sort of happens. I don't know.
So I just want to, before we get into my bit that I do on every show, I just want to touch on two little things that you've got coming up.
Sure.
And that's, obviously we'll quickly touch on one because it's already launched, and that's Pod U.
Pod U. I am
How
so...
did this come about?
Okay, all right. This is amazing. This is another story that I have no fucking idea. But, okay, so back when Bone Crushing Juggernaut, you know, I'm a Kev fan, Bone Crushing Juggernaut started, I had a podcast. Like every podcaster, when they first start, they're looking for any and every way to get the word out and build listenership. The funny thing is, the best way to build listenership to any podcaster will tell you is Twitter. But,
yep.
Yeah, so when I was looking, I stumbled across this dead feed on Smodcast Network. I don't even know how I found it. Apparently, I'm not the only one, but because other people knew of its existence. But I don't know how long it had sat there when I found it, and we're going back, 2.5 years now. So, and it gave the email and all that address. So immediately, boom, I shot out my info. And like everyone else who experienced that website, that's all we did. You shoot your stuff out and you didn't hear back for a very, very, very long time. So when ThatMan on ThatMan started, I said to myself, I'm going to get on Pod U. I'm going to set that as a goal. That's a goal for this show. I'm going to get on Pod U. My other goal was to get on NYC Podfest. I also wanted that BCJ to be an NYC Podfest. And so January 1st, I entered both shows, or whatever it was, February 1st, whatever the fuck they announced it. It couldn't have been January because there was no ThatMan on ThatMan yet. Anyway, I digress. When I started ThatMan on ThatMan, I had it in my head. I would love to get on Pod U. Obviously, there's this feed that's been sitting there. And I would also start to talk about it on the show. I talked about Pod U probably on BCJ a couple times. So there was Pod U sitting out there. When I started ThatMan on ThatMan, I guess maybe it was the Scott Schiaffo show. Around there. Maybe a couple more. Somewhere in there I was like, you know what? I'm going to send this to PodU. And so I sent it into that email address. And this was weird, I have to admit. So I sent it in. I said something to the effect of, I know this has been here a long time. And I know there's probably, no chance that you guys are looking at this or seeing it or whatever. But I started this podcast called ThatMan on ThatMan, and here's an episode, or, just in case. And also, as a Kev fan, you kind of secretly wish that Kev is reading these. So you kind of tailor it a little. So, and then I sent it off. Now, I want to say it was maybe a month or two later. It wasn't that far that I got a reply from PodU. Want to hear it?
Go on.
Hang on, give me a second. I can pull it up. I'm pretty sure. It was very short, but it was like, it lit me up. I was like, what? What? Shit. I'll summarize. Essentially, it's something to the degree of, thanks for sending it in. We'll give this a listen to and see what's what. And then, in parentheses, what? And I was like, oh my God, it's Kevin.
So Kevin and
yeah, well, that's what I thought, because I was thinking, who the fuck else would say what? Who else knows? So I wrote this other, like, kind of heartfelt email, kind of explaining shit to Kev, and I think I opened it with like, I know everyone hopes for the, I don't know who's at the other end, but as a Kev fan, I'm hoping for the best kind of shit. And then I poured my heart out to Kevin. Turns out it was Will Wilkins. I later come to find out. But yeah, I don't want to be like, I opened PodU, but I think my enthusiasm and persistence certainly helped play, some small part.
I was looking on the Smartcast page for it earlier, and it's saying, like, submit your podcast. So by pushing that, you've potentially opened the world for so many other podcasters to be heard. And
I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. Not just for me, but for everybody.
That's why I've called it the jackpot.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that, because I'm always looking for other podcasts, to tell you the truth. I want to hear shit. I want something new. You every once in a while you listen to all your shows, you got nothing left. It's like, oh, what else? With PodU, there's a fucking index of like, hey, we like this and we like that, and check this out and check that. That's a wonderful service.
So it inspired me. As soon as I saw it said, submit your podcast, I was like, I'm going to get an episode. It's going to sound great, and I'm going to send it off.
Yeah, and there you go. It gives fucking podcasters something to shoot for. They're now, like I said, when you start your podcast, you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to aim for. What's the end goal? But it gives you something.
It's like, I will get an iTunes, submit a podcast, done. I'm on iTunes.
Yeah. Now it's easy for us to say it kind of and poo-poo it. But remember, we had to do some research and figure out how to do that stuff.
Well, yes. I'm making it sound a lot simpler than it is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, hindsight is 20/20. I got you.
The last thing I wanted to is NYC Podfest, as you've already mentioned.
Yeah, that was another. I mean,
it's fantastic.
Well, in 2004, I found out about it last year while I was doing BCJ. That show was in existence. We were doing it, but I found out about it like, after it was locked and they started announcing, oh, it's coming up. And I reached out to them. I said, this is fucking great. I wish I knew about it sooner. What can I do to help? And they said, tweet us and, like us and forward our shit and that kind of stuff. And next year, please, submit. So I put that on the radar for BCJ. And when they announced it, I might have entered BCJ into Podfest 2015 on like January 2nd of this year, because as soon as they announced it, I paid my $15 entrance fee and went. So I was way ahead of the game. And then as soon as That Man on Fat Man had a good episode, which I think was Scott Schiaffo. I did the same thing there. Man, put me on their radar. And I've been if you paid attention to my Twitter and shit, I've been a booster of theirs the whole year since.
Yeah, so.
I think it's a great thing. It, like you said, it gave me something to shoot for. I didn't know that I would get in. BCJ didn't get in.
It'd be great to see if they did something like that over here.
Yeah, well, start one.
Podcasts really are at the minute. Obviously, they're over here, but they're more known in America. If that makes sense.
You say that, but we have so many fucking UK listeners. It's nuts.
It's really tempting to try and find like a group where podcasters talk on social media and say like, "Come on, British podcasters, let's put that fucking."
And I'll say this: I would say that my UK and my fucking Pacific Rim listeners are a lot more loyal and a lot more vocal. No offense, Americans, but come on, step it up.
You've been challenged.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fucking A, man. Like Ben Gumry and fucking, Not So Sunday Jeff and all these fucking guys. They're really fun. They participate. I like to see more of that.
So the guests you've got lined up are, as you mentioned, Scott Schiaffo, Chris Laudando, and Rob Bruce.
Yeah. Let's talk about the lineup. So actually, now it starts with David Mannheimer playing our theme song in a sing along.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. Oh. Now the thing about my theme song is what I don't usually share is the guitar work is not me. I'm not that good at guitar. I can strum and I can play, but I'm not good at picking and all that. That's my brother, who's been playing forever, in 4th grade. I started learning guitar. I sucked. They put me on drums. He kept playing guitar. So that's him. But I asked him if he'd like to play, and he's just too shy a guy. And he's like, no. So I got the next best thing. The guy whose song, the guy who wrote and recorded, he didn't write so much as ripped off, and recorded the Fat Man on Batman theme, David Mannheimer. Woo-hoo. So that's the opener. Then there's going to be a panel, because as this thing grew, it got more wildy. So it's just going to be more of a panel approach. And on the panel is Scott Schiaffo, Chris Laudando, Ernie O'Donnell, Rob Bruce, and there's a new mystery guest that I have not announced yet. I'm hoping someone guesses it, but I'm probably going to announce it this week on the show if no one guesses it first. Would you like to guess?
I don't know.
All right. No, not a problem. It's to tell you the truth, it's one of those ones that I think only fans will really know. Someone said Ed Hapstack, to which I said, "You're getting warm." I could give another clue, but it would give it away. That's an exclusive.
I won't say it. Just in case it's right, I won't say it.
I'll say it. Hey, what can you do? You just get wrong. Say it. Come on. If you say it, I'll tell it. If you guess it right, I will definitely announce it.
The guy that originally shot Dante at the end?
Oh, no. Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, he actually works for VSQ. But it's not him. That was a good guess, though. I'll give you that. That was a good one. Yeah, but because technically he wasn't even in the movie. You've only seen him if you've seen the outtakes or the extended cut or the original cut.
What I want to do now, I want to move it into what I like to call the defined mullet part of the conversation.
Okay.
That's what I like to call my podcast, the defined mullet. Because at the front, it's all business.
You. Party at the back.
My favourite things, you have a party at the back.
There you go.
I love that. Yeah. So what I like to do is I like to break down my favourite things into 3 categories. Things that everyone loves. Movies, television, and music.
Okay. So you want my picks?
I want your picks. So movies. Obviously, we'll exclude Kevin from this because obviously...
Do you want like my favorite movies or just stuff I'm into right now, or...
Your favourite movies?
Of all time. If I was going to give you a top 10 or a top 5, Lebowski would be in there.
Amazing choice.
since we've excluded all the Kevin films, which is good because those are going. Here's a couple of interesting movies. Here's two movies that never failed to put me in a good mood, so I love them. Galaxy Quest. Shawshank is another one I watch a lot. Yeah, Army of Darkness is the other movie. Never fails to put me in a good mood.
Oh, I haven't seen that in many years.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I know a lot of people think that the campiness is I love it. I've come to love that more than
That's what I love about all horror movies.
Me too. And I also love the fact that Raimi was going for it was kind of a tribute to his love of Ray Harryhausen movies. So, yeah.
I love.
And Greg Nicotero worked on that too, I believe, when he was a young man. And he does a lot of. He's like the Walking Dead guy.
Yeah.
And let's see any other. I have to say, I loved Captain America 2.
Oh,
I think it was like a perfect fucking.
Oh, it was.
And
it was. Oh.
If I was going to show you like superhero as an icon, you'd want it to be Superman, but fuck that. That movie is perfect. Captain America is the perfect hero in that movie.
Completely agree. I walked out of that film going, fuck, the Avengers 2 better be good if it's going to top that.
Yeah, it's going to have a real tough time.
So good.
It's going to have a real tough time. And I really love Guardians of the Galaxy. Watched it again last night. And sorry, Walter, totally disagree. I love the dancing. I think the dancing is brilliant. I think it shows...
The comedy in that film is incredible.
It shows that evil doesn't have a fucking sense of humor. You know what I mean? It's that simple. It's that easy, I
don't know much about the Guardians of the Galaxy as like in comics wise, so I just
even better.
It was.
Oh, because it was it was a mild background comic, it was a niche comic. Not a lot of people did know it, but I just knew, as sure as I could. That's why I'm glad I have a podcast because I put all my comments are on record. You can go back and hear it. I said, "You watch that movie's going to be a hit." It just feels like it because nobody knows it, and that's why. It'll be like, wow, where the fuck did this come from? And people would go, but it's got a raccoon in it. I said, you watch. It's going to blow your mind.
The best character in the film only says 3 words, and it's his name.
Yes. And it's mainlining nostalgia, the way they incorporated the fucking music. And it has a heart with the cancer, the mom. And that movie does so many tricks. It is an amazing film. And it's a popcorn movie.
Yeah. So.
Well, so there you go. That might not be those might not be, Spinal Tap would definitely be in, my favorites of all time. That was one of those ones I grew up on. And, Monty Python, all the geek touchstones, I think.
So we were going to the Galaxy and we went to the cinema to watch it. I remember the after credits scene, Howard the Duck came on.
Yeah.
I'm sat in the cinema going, oh my fucking God, it's Howard! Going mental. Everyone around me is looking at me going, we stayed after the credits for that bullshit walking off, and I'm just going nuts.
You know what I had to show my daughter a few days later?
Oh.
The Lucasfilm.
Oh, it's so...
Which I hadn't watched in years. I remember it being better. You know what I mean? Like, I remember seeing it and going, oh, it wasn't that bad, except for he's a duck. And some of the, weird interspecies erotica shit was kind of odd. And some of the duck boobs are weird.
It's the I am the master of quack furry.
Yeah. I mean, it's a guy in a rubber suit, too.
Oh, it's so bad, but it's great.
Yeah, I think it is starting to have that kind of effect. Definitely. It's one of those movies. It's a cult film. But yeah, my daughter and I, it was fun turning yes, Star Wars. The guy who did Star Wars did this turd. But we got a kick out of it.
This episode of the podcast is the first ever podcast I recorded, and it was a movie review of Howard the Duck. And I hadn't seen it in years, and I was like, I'm not going to watch it beforehand. I'm literally just going to watch it, make notes, because I want to be raw from watching it, because it's just so brilliantly bad.
Have you done a commentary track yet?
That's what I didn't do a commentary track. I did it as like a review kind of thing, telling you what happens in the movie and my thoughts and stuff on it.
I almost think at this point that's like a podcaster's rite of passage. That's one of those things you just have to do at this point.
I had to do one, and it had to be Howard.
We did Kung Fu Zombies on Bone Crushing Juggernaut, but we didn't do it very well. we got sucked into the story a lot. Kev actually says the best way to do it. The best way to do a commentary is to watch the movie 2 times beforehand, make notes or do whatever, get your thoughts together. Then when you roll it with whoever you're commentarying with, keep the sound down all the way. And don't worry about necessarily commenting scene for scene. Just talk about it.
If you like two kind of things, check out a podcast called Cinema Swirl.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically 2 guys. One guy's seen most films and the other guy hasn't seen anything. Like, up until this point, he'd never even seen Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
And it's brilliant because they'll talk about it. He'll basically go, what do you know of it? Do you know anything? Because it's like they're really popular films. And then he'll watch it and they'll sit down and talk about it. And some of the things they come out with, you realise how bad or how great these films are through seeing through a fresh pair of eyes.
Mm-hmm. Actually,
really enjoyable podcast. I'd suggest it.
I should probably announce this too, because at the Podfest we have a slot and it's sort of split with another podcast. So when you buy tickets for us, you get to see another podcast as well. It's called Does This Hold Up? And they're a movie podcast. And I believe what they do, I haven't heard them yet. I'm sorry. I apologize. But I know what their shtick is. I just haven't listened to it. They take old movies and they review them and they say, does this movie still hold up? Is it still relevant? That kind of thing. I think it's a good concept. TV shows. Okay. First of all, I have become one of those persons where I almost never watch TV I don't watch real-time TV. Everything I do, I either put it on, Amazon or the internet. I'm a total time shifter. I don't watch anything on time. Comic Book Men, Impractical Jokers, are any of these shockers yet? You know what? It's weird. My TV watching has become very sporadic. Now, last season, I started watching a shitload of shows, but I'm not that good, so I'm better at binge watching. So I guess Arrow. I'm into Arrow.
I love Arrow.
Yeah. So superhero shit. I haven't watched Flash yet, but again,
incredible.
I'm a binge guy, so I want the whole season to drop, and then I'll fucking chew them up.
Have you watched any of Gotham yet?
I haven't watched Gotham yet either. Same reason. I want them to queue. What I have gotten good at is avoiding press. Because really, I want to watch these shows, but I know, here's what happens to me. I'll watch an episode or two and then I'll miss, and then I'll be like, what the fuck? And I'll feel like I can't jump back in. And so I would just rather binge it on a weekend.
Binging is good. I binged Breaking Bad because I missed it when it was actually on TV.
Oh, I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it past season 2, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just like watching a friend's life get thrown away. It was too close to home. You know what I mean? I was like watching some of my friends of mine go down the toilet. Yeah, I couldn't. It would bother me. It was like, and the 1 step forward, 2 steps back drove me nuts too. All these fucking narrative obstacles.
No, I enjoyed it.
I didn't say it was bad. Trust me, it was a very good show, very powerful. That's almost why I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
So obviously you said before that you're a musician.
Yeah, drummer.
So
Some people don't consider us musicians. I've been playing drums since 4th grade. I can also play a little guitar and a little bass. I'm the problem with guitar and bass is I play righty, but I am a lefty. I play drums lefty, and that's probably why I'm good at drums as opposed to guitar and bass. But someone had done the damage early on and taught me righty, and what I will say about playing righty is it's actually helped my drumming because it's increased the amount of rhythm that I need to get into my right hand.
So what bands were you into when obviously you mentioned Kiss but kind of fell off the bandwagon?
Yeah, well, that was more like when I was a kid. I was one of those alternative guys of the 90s. I was also very into something called the jam band scene here growing up. So a lot of Blues Traveler, Fish, Dave Matthews, bands that would tour and, people would follow them, do a lot of mushrooms and shit. So I was a lot into that. And I was also in bands. I was in a band called Prozac that if you listen to any of my shows, you hear a lot of our music from time to time. I'll throw it in as the closer. I mean, the opening theme to Bone Crushing Juggernaut is Prozac.
That's why I get new music.
Well, I mean, it was handy having a musical background. I have all these songs from the past. I was like, shit. Well, now I've got music I can use, and I don't have to worry about rights.
So what bands are you listening to at the moment, then?
I tell you, there's a disc that I keep going. Well, Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack is awesome, of course. Yeah. Although it's fallen off my playlist of late because I played the shit out of it. I think back in the summer, in the early fall. There's a Panic at the Disco. Their most recent disc is amazing. Let's see. There's a couple discs that Them Crooked Vultures from a few years back is an amazing disc. I'll throw on a lot. I'm going to see Slayer in a few weeks. Next week, actually. But I'm not necessarily when I was a kid, anything fast and heavy was great. I was a hardcore kid. So Slayer, when they did those cutovers, when metal started getting hardcore, I had the Slayer disc.
Metal. I don't know if you do the same as me, being a Kev Smith fan. All I hear in my head is meh, 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 meh.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so yeah, Rain and Blood was an excellent album, and I can't wait to see them play it.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
I'll see you like Jeff Hanneman there, then.
Yeah, I heard that. I didn't realize that that's the guitar player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, he's not doing so well. Did he pass or he's just sick?
Yeah, no, he passed. Yeah.
Oh, did he? Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, I heard it. He had cancer, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. How long ago did he go?
It was a while back now.
God, it shows you what I know. I don't fucking know anything about the band. I mean, I just know that I loved that album as a kid. I wasn't like, gaga. I think I knew more about the band SOD. Stormtroopers of Death.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's actually two of the guys from Anthrax and two of the guys from a band called MOD. Billy Milano and yeah. That album was like, to me, the Nevermind the Bullocks of, what to me what Nevermind the Bullocks did to punk, SOD did to hardcore.
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
I mean, there's a lot of Nazi crap, but essentially what they set out to do was, oh, okay, you think that's offensive. Really, PMRC, you're having a problem? Check this out. And they purposely, they went to every place that you shouldn't go. They have songs like Premenstrual Princess Blues, March of the SOD, which means Stormtroopers of Death. Did I say Premenstrual Princess Blues? Did we say that? Yeah. Kill Yourself is like the second song on the album. And it pretty much, that's the chorus. Kill yourself, kill yourself. Why don't you kill yourself? Don't rely on no one else. End it all. Kill yourself. So, I mean, it was basically spitting in the face of convention and what was deemed socially acceptable on a record at the time. It's an amazing record. And it's fast. And some songs are like 30 seconds, some of that shit.
Oh, God, sounds like Napalm Death.
Yeah. It's right in that wheelhouse. It came out around that. I think it was 83, 82, somewhere in there.
Napalm Death, they're from where I live.
Yeah, Scotty Ian and Scotty Ian from Anthrax, and I think the drummer? Charlie. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, definitely.
Yeah, and Kev says Anthrax is like the party band. They are the nerd band.
Mr. Holden, I've taken up 2 hours of your time.
Dude, I'm very happy to be on. I enjoy it. To me, it's more like it's fun because I don't have to put in any of the rest of the work that usually goes with being on a podcast. So I love it.
I've really enjoyed this. It hasn't felt like an interview like I normally do. It's just been a chat. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the way it should be, I think.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no problem.
Get out of here. Plug yourself, sir. Not
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess that's a good idea. The easiest way to find out anything about what's going on with me, ThatManOnFatMan.com, or you can go to bcjuggernaut.com. That's kind of firing up again, so bear with it. But really, That Man on Fat Man's my primary show, my primary address, my primary existence. So ThatManOnFatMan.com. And we're on iTunes and Stitcher and all that stuff too. But again, you go there, you'll find everything.
Amazing. And as we're saying, NYC Podfest, when's that again?
That is in January. So January 9th through the 11th. Again, you go to my site and there's links there, or you can go to nycpodfest.com. And, you know, who's on the bill that I remember off the top of my head? Well, headlining on Saturday is The Daily Show without Jon Stewart. So it's essentially The Daily Show writers and people that do segments. So that promises to be very funny. And our night is the headliner is Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, which I don't know off the top of my head, but if you know Gilbert Gottfried, you know who he is.
I know of Gilbert Gottfried, yeah.
The parrot from Aladdin, and yeah.
It's that voice.
He's got that voice, yeah. So yeah, he's headlining the night. That's the 11th. And on the Friday night that kicks off their Podfest, it's actually they're doing the first night at a big theater in Brooklyn. And shoot, I can't think of the name of who it is off the top of my head, but it's a big podcaster. God, I can even see their logo. But go on NYC Podfest and you'll see. Risk. It's Risk. So Risk is the headliner in Brooklyn that night, but you can get all the details there. And go on PodU and submit your show if you're a podcaster to PodU.
Yes, definitely. I definitely encourage that one myself.
Yeah, man.
And I will be doing that at some point, personally. One last thing, if I could ask.
Yeah, please.
I asked all my guests to do is just say my name, and then obviously say your name, and these are a few of my favourite things.
Hey, everybody. This is Scott Holden, and these are a few of my favorite things.
Thank you so much, mate.
No problem.
There we go. Episode 6 is in the bag. Huge thank you to Scott. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Great conversation. As we said in the episode, if you love podcasts, do it yourself. It's such an awesome medium. I'm so happy I'm part of this massive universe of podcasts. Even if no one listens to me, I'm just happy to be doing it. Before I get out of here, I'm going to do my usual plugs at FaveThingsPod on the Twitter. Facebook.com/Favourite Things Podcast. And please come and get involved. Let me know what you think. Rate and review on iTunes, please do. You know, give me some feedback. I need to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. 2 things, I'm going to ask for some favours from you guys. I really want to get a stand-up comedian on this show. I find comedians just absolutely awesome. You know, I want to get one on the show. If you know anyone, you know how to get in touch with anyone, obviously someone that's a bit known kind of thing, not necessarily famous, but known. So, you know, it draws in some listeners, you know, to what this thing is all about, getting listened to. But I'd really love that. And another one, I'm thinking about starting a website, myfavouritethingspodcast.com. Probably a bit long name, maybe myfavourithings.com. Haven't decided. But if any of you little web designy techie people out there know how to design a really good website and on the cheap because I'm poor and I'm saving for a wedding, there you go, feel sorry for me. I'm getting married. I'm doing it. Anyway, before we get out of here, as always, I'm going to play a song chosen by the guest. I'm going to do 2. Scott's asked if I could just play the theme song to his podcast because he wrote it and sang it himself, and it's awesome. And it's an amazing play on Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman, rather. So give it a listen. It's absolutely awesome. And then obviously go check out his podcast. Absolutely amazing. Give him some support. He's made it onto Smodcast, guys. He's reached he's up there. He's reaching the plateau. He's living the dream. So proud of him. So glad to have him on the show. And then after that, I'm going to play a song chosen by myself for the Kevin Smith fans, and that is Suzanne by Weezer from The End of Mallrats, because I absolutely love that fucking song and I love that damn film. So here we go. Take it away, one after the other. You ain't going to hear from me again. Goodbye, so long. Auf Wiedersehen, good night. Bye-bye. Love you all.
Okay, what has two thumbs and is a huge fan of Kevin Smith? ThatMan! Well, once upon a time, a regular man read a book written by the Fat Man. Tough shit, written by old Kev Smith. Kev said go out and start a podcast, and so I did, and I had a real blast. But my obsession was driving my co-host nuts. Didn't want to bring the podcast down. Needed Porkchop Murphy to hang around. So I created a new show with one heck of a plan, and I'd call that show That Man on Fat Man, because we're going to chat about Kevin Smith. That's right, let's talk about old Kev Smith.